It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for a beauty. Would you be mine? Please won't you be my neighbor?
I smoke while I'm watching cartoons. I have my first cigarette of the day when I get up. We smoke in the car on the way to school. I smoke while I'm coloring. I smoke during my nap.
When you smoke around your kids,
I'm down to about a pack a day.
it's like they're smoking. Secondhand smoke can hurt their lung growth and permanently damage lung functions.
I tried quitting. I need to try again.
Quit for you, quit for your kids. Call 1-800-QUIT-NOW.
Oh, hey, how you doing? Yeah, I'm CF Roberts, the most dangerous man in Fayetteville. I'm public access, and so are you. Get out of here, I'm working.
Tonight, I am resigning from the board of Fayetteville Open Channel. Change often scares people. Open Channel staff were afraid of their job status. Some of the producers were afraid they would have to follow FOC policies, which they were ignoring. And rumors were spread about how the city was going to censor programs. At the annual membership meeting in September, 7 new board members were elected to Open Channel's 16-member board. Most of these new members are anti-city. They want to throw out all the previous negotiations with the city and to present their own contract, which demanded a large sum of money with no budget justification and very few performance requirements. Eventually, the Open Channel board did agree on a contract that most of the accountability, that had most of the accountability checks omitted. But it also omitted some of the extreme demands asked by the Joe Robson contract. I feel most of us knew that this contract would not be acceptable to the city, but we felt this agreement might start cooperation among our own board members. At the November 5th city board meeting, when the FOC interim contract was considered, I spoke for the FOC board, saying that this interim contract had been approved at our last board meeting. Then 2 FOC board members spoke against the contract, and Joe Robson even brought up various of his opinions that had been discarded at a previous FOC board meeting. This kind of non-support did a great disservice to our organization. It told the world that the FOC board is not a well-functioning body that could handle a large contract from the city. In order to provide a high quality of service, FOC must have good funding and a professional staff. The other philosophy represented on the board sees the city as its enemy and feels FOC must make demands and the city has an obligation to comply. It doesn't matter that FOC board members can't understand balance sheets, monthly financial reports, or even line item budgets, because the board will spend the money as it pleases and somehow a hired accountant will keep it all straight. During the past 2 months, I've tried to work with these 2 divergent philosophies, but the situation has gotten no better. I was on the first board when Open Channel was born. I am already mourning its death. Joe, as Vice President, I'm turning FOC over to you. You have already given it its death blow.
November 1991, how was it that 8 people could walk off the board of directors of Fayetteville Open Channel and bring the city so close to a civil war over public access? It seems almost impossible to believe today. But in 1991, there was a volatile relationship between the people of Fayetteville and the city government. Many people did not trust the city government. Many people felt the city government had only contempt for its citizens. A lot of people felt that their phones were tapped or there was surveillance on them, and people who you would think of as progressive were derided by those in city government, called beginners, because they were against what was called progress.
Fayetteville Open Channel puts more Fayetteville on television than any other television station. More local talent and performances, more public forums and political events, and more individual statements and personal opinions. This is community access television for and by the people of Fayetteville. Commercial-free television where you get the whole picture. Complete public meetings and press conferences. Unedited addresses from local leaders and prominent visitors. And always your free opportunity to respond and express your own perspective. Public access television, a window on our community. Your community television station, Fayetteville Open Channel.
July 1991. Marion Orton, board president of Fayetteville Open Channel, sits with the staff members of Fayetteville Open Channel and explains to them that Fayetteville Open Channel is about to become part of the PEG system, which Fayetteville has never seen before. The PEG system is public education and government. Heretofore, Fayetteville Open Channel was the sole provider of public access in the city. They ran all the government meetings, and they let everybody come down and use the television. It was totally independent. Originally, as it was envisioned, the cable administrator for Fayetteville would have firing power over the staff of Fayetteville Open Channel. Now, there was a producer making a training tape who just happened to catch this conversation on tape, which was later shown on the station.
See, what this makes up, that makes Open Channel, well, not just Open Channel, makes the PEGs another department of the city. But it's a department of the city that they equate, they equate this, compare it, well, when I say they, I'd say Scott Linebaugh was very much for Open Channel, but he is seeing it as being set up like the animal shelter and the Humane Society, which is done, the city has built the building for the animal shelter, and the city hires the director there, and some of the employees that go out and catch animals and so forth. The Humane Society hires the, whoever, let's see, which one hired the director? Anyway, they have, it's a comparable thing, and I keep saying, I don't know that we are like the Humane Society, like the animal shelter, whether that's a good comparison, but it is what they see as, and there's a Humane Society board. They do the policies. They do their own billing. See them? Well, I guess that the idea is that we have to get used to, or I guess you all, that you will have a boss. And I must say a rather demanding boss. But I think reasonable, demanding, but if there's any question, you have to go on.
Later on, this tape found its way onto the channel. Because of the poor sound quality, the producer who put it on added subtitles. Unfortunately, he didn't put subtitles on so you would understand what the people were saying. He put subtitles on which were signifying his opinion of what Marion Orton was saying. In his naivety, he felt this was the best way to get people to know the danger to Open Channel. It may not have been ethical, but it certainly did create a firestorm. And several months after this tape was played, in September 1991, the membership of Fayetteville Open Channel was flooded by those who were angered by what they had seen. Remember, people did not trust the city at this time. They felt if the city was in charge, even in a small way in charge of public access, that there would be mass censorship. And a lot of the political people who had been able to use Fayetteville Open Channel successfully in the past to fight a proposed incinerator and to run for office and to gain seats on the city council, they would be denied access to the airwaves. There was fear that public access in Fayetteville would become sort of vanilla-type programming, and the more radical or avant-garde elements would be kept off. Accordingly, at the general membership meeting in September 1991, 8 new board members were selected. Now, to give you some background, The 8 new board members had often clashed politically with the older board members and on issues totally unrelated with public access. They'd fought over the incinerator, they'd fought over ambulance companies, they'd fought over the proposed change in the form of government in Fayetteville. And so, in retrospect, it was like taking a roller coaster ride holding a bottle of nitroglycerin. At the time, though, it seemed an entirely reasonable thing that the two sides, even though there was so much bitterness, could work together. But they were 100% wrong. Almost instantly, the strain began to show. At the contract negotiation meetings, harsh words were spoken, and those meetings threatened to fall apart.
And that's why you had all those new faces. And I think we have got to listen to the new people that were so angry. You cannot ignore an angry mob.
But I question how the new people got there.
Well, they got there by paying their dues.
Well, they got there by paying their dues, but, okay.
Well, Bob,
Let me finish my point. Troubles in the personnel committee came, unfortunately, we only got 2 employees, so they involved the 2 employees. The employee who was responsible, is this on? I hope it is.
Yeah, it's on.
Okay. I failed the organization in not properly seeing that the ballots were handed out right. But the person who handed out the ballots is supposed to have known that. And so
what
the
failure was
wrong number of ballots were handed out at the very outset in violation of our policy. Well, that's one thing that was wrong. That shouldn't have happened.
how is that?
Secondly, there was some rabble-rousing going in there that had nothing to do with Open Channel or the spirit of Open Channel.
What?
That's just an illustration of what we've had to put up with the past year. We've had, and I'm not trying to say this in a derogatory manner, but you can't have employees running, and I'm going to use the word business just because an organization. There's got to be a leader. And that's why some of the language is in this agreement right here. Shay, unfortunately, for some people, knows a lot about Open Channel. She's been associated longer, probably, than Marion has. I don't know.
Twice been director of it.
That may be as it is, but
she was able to see the weaknesses of it and the strengths of it.
That may be as it is. However, because of the position Shay is in, I will never, ever pass a contract which gives her that power, and I think you'd have 7 or 8 board members not doing it.
That's because she's a city employee.
It's because she's a city employee, not because of Shay Crane. I mean, I don't know Shay Crane as a person. She may be wonderful. She may. I don't care. It's the city employee connection.
Okay. But what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to explain why some of these things I'm sure were put in here.
Okay.
She has recognized a great weakness we've got in this organization right now. Mm-hmm. And the reason is we don't have any strong leadership. Now,
and that is that the board has failed in its responsibilities, okay? That the board, not just in whether the tickets were handed out appropriately for voting, but that it didn't put its foot down, deciding absolutely what it expected from a manager, and then assess whether or not they were getting that. It's the board's responsibility
we only had a manager for less than 3 months.
Yeah.
So we had gone through a long selection process and picked a darn good man, but we don't have one right.
Because I wasn't on the board, that doesn't. I would really like to say that it's not a personal thing. I don't want to point fingers at the board, but it's always the board's responsibility.
Right. That's true.
That's right. And the board doesn't solve that problem by putting the administration of that corporation into the hands of some government entity to handle it for them.
Things reached a head November 1991, when Marion Orton, the board president, led several board members in a walkout of the board. It was the first meeting ever that the board meetings at Fayetteville Open Channel had been televised. If anything else, this made for great television. It was very exciting to watch.
Joe, as Vice President, I'm turning FOC over to you. You have already given it its death blow. It is in need of trauma care. Gather your forces and see what you can do. There are, let's see, 2 members that were unable to be here tonight. Roy Nastashi, because of musical conflict, and he is resigning. And
Jim Reese?
and Jim Reese, yeah, Jim Reese moved today, and he's unable to come, but he is also resigning.
And I'm Lyle Thompson, and I don't have a written statement, such as Mrs. Orton have, but I also am going to resign. I've been on the board here for 3 or 4 years. I'm not exactly sure how long. I almost resigned at the end of the annual meeting held in September, and then one of my colleagues, one of my friends at that meeting, suggested very strongly to me that night that I should resign. I had no place on that board as it was reconstituted, he suggested. But because of Mrs. Orton, because of the yeoman's work that she has done, working for a decade or longer on this organization, I decided at that time not to resign, not to leave her high and dry. But if she is resigning, then I have no particular reason to stay here. And the thing that appalled me, and appalled an awful lot of people at that particular annual board meeting, was this terrible rudeness, that disrespect, that lack of politeness toward her and toward all of the older board members at that annual meeting. And so I don't particularly want to carry on and be a part of that particular body. Thank you. Those are my comments.
Okay, Marianne, before you go, I'd like to turn in my resignation this evening. I guess I want to reinforce with what you said tonight, feelings that Lyle, I've never seen, I guess, in the groups that I belong to, such an unprofessional group. I'm not sure that I could support this group, and I appreciate everything you've done, and I'm very sad that this is come to this. So somebody will have to take my position as secretary. I'm sad to see this happen.
This week, knowing this was going to happen, I've been very disappointed that we didn't speak as one, as Marion said up there at the city board meeting. It also bothered me about 3 weeks ago when we met with the Cable Commission, and one of our own members insulted one of the members of the Cable Commission before the meeting was over. Not a member of this board, but one of our Open Channel members. We had a committee meeting last week dealing with personnel, and before the meeting was over, one of the board members insulted another board member, and that's why he's not here tonight. And I'm just not comfortable working in an atmosphere like this.
I'm Richard Drake. I'm a new board member. I'm not announcing my resignation. I'm sorry to see Mrs. Orton go. I'm sorry to see Lyle and everyone else go. Things have changed over the last, how long has Open Channel been around? 10 years, 11 years? Things have changed over the last decade in Fayetteville and for Open Channel. Fayetteville, I guess, is in an embattled situation. There's no longer a trust of city government, as it were, no longer a trust of authority. Many of us feel we can't implicitly trust those we're negotiating with. I speak for myself on this. Many of us have seen over the last several years that citizens in this city have fewer and fewer chances to speak. At the quorum court meetings, the comment section has been moved to the end of the quorum court meeting. At the city board meetings, the citizens' comment section is now non-televised. We hear a lot of groups coming up saying only qualified people should speak, only people who have a certain degree of knowledge. One of the things I like about Open Channel is that ordinary citizens can speak and do have a chance. One of the reasons I'm on this board, and one of the reasons I support this contract that we hammered out in September and October, is because I think it does give Open Channel a fighting chance, and the people of Fayetteville a chance to speak. I'm sorry to see the old board members leave, but I think they're doing a disservice to Open Channel, and I think they're doing a disservice to this community. Thank you.
I guess as Vice President, I will conduct the rest of this meeting, and we will have to make decisions for the future, obviously. I want to say that this is a surprise, and it saddens me. I'm not glad to see Marion or any of the other board members leave. I thought that we had worked together rather well, that the compromised contract that was unanimously agreed to by this entire board, with all 16 board members present, was an indication that we did indeed want to work together. I believe that it's probably indicative of a lot of the problems that we have had in Fayetteville and in Washington County, that people would look at differences of opinion as a bad thing. We see consistent, unanimous decisions being made in city and county government. I, for one, as an elected official over the last 2 terms, have not found it an impossible task to be in a minority opinion and to be willing to express that. I think that minority opinions should always be allowed. When the new board members came on, when they were elected at the annual general membership meeting, which took place in the end of May, we were faced with the prospect of having to agree to a contract that had to be ratified and approved by the 30th of September. We had a little bit over a week to come to grips with what that contract was. That contract was written by an employee of the city. It gave the city cable administrator complete control over our personnel down here. I would disagree that the personnel down here need to be managed by a city employee who works directly for our city manager. Many of us agreed with that point of view. Most of our membership agreed with that point of view. And as a result of that, we were told that if we wanted to write a different contract, if we did not like that contract, we should write our own. Mr. Job Sarabrod and myself were appointed to the negotiating committee along with Marion Orton, and we did indeed take up that challenge, and within less than a week we had come up with an alternate contract with the city of Fayetteville. We believed that the model which had just previously passed at the city directors meeting, which allowed the Chamber of Commerce in a privatized contract to do the economic development for this city, that we could model ourselves along the same kind of contract, and that media services should be privatized and in the hands of a separate corporation. This corporation is a separate corporation, and it has a board of directors which are supposed to direct it. For it to become a department of the city of Fayetteville, we believed was against the best interests of the city of Fayetteville. I disagree very strongly with Marion Orton that we have caused the death of Fayetteville Open Channel. I don't want to be personal about that. Marion Orton and I have had significant differences of opinion in the past. Without getting into any of that detail, I felt that those differences were being expressed in a very healthy way between she and I've never been personal with her.
If anything else, what you just saw was great television. Where did they go that night? What happened? Did they just vanish into the night? No. This is where they went. Follow me. Several of the board members came here, the FOC break room, where they stood around the television and watched the proceedings on television. What they saw was survival, tenuous at best perhaps, but the remaining board members at FOC found a way to survive. At the end of the night, Fayetteville Open Channel was still a viable organization. Several weeks later, a new group was vying for the public access contract in Fayetteville, Access for Fayetteville, which meant they were in competition with FOC to run the public access station. According to June Bolt, an investigative reporter for the Washington County Observer, who did an article several months later, several of the A4F members weren't exactly sure how they made it onto the board. They received a phone call from the president, Marion Orton, and no one was sure how she was president. And when she asked them if they would be willing to sit on the board, they said yes, and that's pretty much how it happened. Rumors began flying that the political fix was in. The Fayetteville Open Channel was considered too dangerous an organization to have the public access contract. Two groups who needed each other to make access television work were opposed to each other. In February 1992, Fayetteville Open Channel held its annual telethon. This was the most successful telethon in Fayetteville Open Channel's history. People in the community knew that FOC and A4F were vying for the contract. The Fayetteville Open Channel board, in the meantime, had become fractious and disorganized. The board president accused by many of being naive, also had a tendency to practice cowboy diplomacy, in which he would go off and negotiate with A4F behind the backs of the other board members, thus resulting in more fractious meetings. And it's difficult to envision this now, but even the board meetings in which Fayetteville Open Channel was falling apart after November were continued to be shown on television.
Yesterday afternoon, I went by to see Marion. And in that afternoon meeting, we discussed the possibilities of putting together some kind of coalition, some kind of merging, some kind of organization where we could all share access channel. Marion took notes on this situation. I spent probably an hour at her house. So this morning, I went to the agenda setting. And I walked in, you were there, and the first thing we found on the agenda was to give access for the contract. It wasn't even a point of negotiation whatsoever. It was the fact that they were to give at this meeting the contract access for. Shay Crane had put together a nice package of the agenda request, which had Marion's proposal in it, our proposal, her bylaws, you know, all the information, including a contract with the city. When this issue came up, Mayor Vorsinger said to the group, he said, I don't want to make a decision on this. I want to give everybody the opportunity at the meeting on the 17th to get up and give their proposals rather than giving it to Access 4 right now. He said he'd had a lot of input from people in the community. He had a copy of a letter that Renee had written that was had been passed out to all the board. He was upset with the fact that he was afraid he was going to make the wrong decision. So he asked at that point that, and so correct me if I'm wrong, but he asked at that point that there be time for both sides to give their opinions so there wouldn't be anything that was put out at that point that would be...
Well, he didn't really say he'd give you time to express your opinion. He said he'd let you respond to what the head of the table board and the head of the selection committee said. And he said that response would be limited to the 3-minute time.
Right, to the 3-minute time period. So anyway, it was showing that Mayor Vorsinger was afraid to make a decision at that point. After that, Marion got up and spoke for a minute to the group, and who was it? Julie Nash had mentioned the fact that maybe the possibility of FOC running Access TV and having access for Fayetteville to run the government channel. And Marion got up and she said, well, we can't do it for that amount, and we'd have to, you know, the money would be divided up. And I said, hey, we could do it. And so anyway, after that, Shay was terribly upset with the recommendation that was given to her by the mayor. She got up and left the room, and shortly thereafter, Marion got up and left the room, and I went outside and I got Marion and I said, let's sit down and talk. So we went over and sat on the sofa and talked for probably an hour. I guess I was out of the room about an hour, wasn't I? And at that point, Marion committed to me that she would go to her board of directors, that she would present the fact to ask her board of directors tonight, which there's a meeting tonight, if they would consider a merge or consider the two groups forming some kind of alliance together. And the second issue that I asked her to address that group of people would be the time frame, whether to do it immediately. Marion was saying after the contract's awarded. I said no, not after the contract is awarded. Ask your board if we can do it this immediately and get started on it. So she agreed to that. We got up, we walked over, the representative from the Times was there, Mary Beth Laura was there from the Morning News, and they asked, you know, why the press conference had been canceled, and I said, well, there's been a change in plans, now we're in negotiation. Marion's standing right there next to me, and then she admits to the press and gets it out to them that we're in negotiations, that we're going to see if we can't work some things out to have the two groups still work together.
This is the usual procedure of the city dealing with citizens. Third loser, the agenda is set. The item on the agenda says to approve the contract to Access 4.
But if there's a merging,
they can take it off the agenda.
They can take it off. They can change it. They can change it. Certainly.
I mean, from a reporter's point of view, I've seen the mayor be like that to one group and making fun of some of the people that appear on Open Channel too.
Well, that's, you know, that's fine. The whole thing is, Marion, the key thing here is that Marion has committed in front of the press.
Well, I guess what I object to about this situation is the fact that the board on Sunday voted to hold a press conference today. We went and listed all our points that we would like to make about facts that have been told erroneously about us as individuals and as a group, and other facts. And we sat down and I took those notes, and then you, me, Tony, and Charles, and Lanny, and several other people hammered out a consensus, modified statement that this board could present, because the public has not heard our side of this story. All they have seen is the side of Marion Orton and her group. So for you to say that you had the right to cancel a board decision on your own seems inappropriate to me. Now, you could have held the press conference and you could have said at the end, in the last day and a half, there has been movement towards negotiation, and we're very excited about this possibility, and that's the end. That would have not destroyed anything that this board worked for. When you told us your story, you called Martin Yaffe and you talked with Marion Orton. They are not on this board. They should not be directing you how to act. That's what we're for. And sometimes it does take time to get us together, but that's the beauty of having a board as opposed to just one person. So I find it very, very hurtful that you would go against what we had already planned. That statement there is very mild and moderate. It does not have anything in it that would hurt our chances of doing a good job of getting negotiations going or whatever. And in debate, there is a question of being equals, and we need to show the public that we have our viewpoint. We've done nothing wrong. We are not against the city. All of that is in our statement. That's what we wanted the people to know about.
I appreciate your feelings, Nancy. I know you worked real hard on that.
Exceeded your authority as president of this board, that you have taken a board decision and you have neutralized it on your own authority, and that it's entirely without reason. It shows to the public the very point that Marion makes, that we do not have the kind of professionalism that they would like to see exhibited in a board. And you yourself have brought this upon us at this time. This is not the first time. Also, I'd like to point out that you are being as gullible as ever in your desire to believe that there's some compromise possible.
This short notice thing is killing me. I'm afraid that you guys are going to give away the house and lot.
No, sir, we're not going to give it away.
How do I know that?
No, she doesn't have me
You've
fooled.
taken unilateral action so far.
There's just a different way sometimes to negotiate situations, right?
Because of the board's either inability or unwillingness to control the president, several FOC board members resigned before their terms were up. And of course, the fateful board meeting, March 17, 1992. The forces of Access for Fayetteville and FOC together at the city boardroom. This was very much like a civil war. It was friend against friend. It was probably one of the most unpleasant confrontations in Fayetteville history.
For the PEG Access Center and its related budget adjustment. I know this subject is the main concern of many of you in the audience.
On live, be able to do live programs later on that same month. And we're anxious to get started, and we would like very much to cooperate with Fayetteville Open Channel. We have a lot of friends there, and many of us are members of Fayetteville Open Channel, and so we hope that we can work together and sort of iron out some of these problems that we've had, and we're anxious to get started to doing that.
Any questions?
Marion, I think we've discussed this earlier, but you know this is a fairly crucial time in Fayetteville's history right now with all the elections coming up in May. Do you feel as if Access 4 will be able to continue to broadcast meetings, or do you feel as if there'll be a lag time that will possibly keep you from broadcasting for a month or two?
Oh, the meetings, you mean of the city board meetings and so forth? We are planning on that April 7th meeting that we will be in the control booth and behind cameras. Yes. And as I say, the coming on live, we will get the head-end wiring, of course, from Warner Cable as soon as possible, and we'll even, this month, we will have that.
Could I have a show of hands who are here supporting Mrs. Orton, just so I have some idea of how many more want to speak? Let me ask how many on this side, or how many in the audience are supporting Mr. Gribble, so we'll have some idea. Okay, do any of you want to add anything that we have not heard?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Richard Drake. I'm Vice President of the Board of Directors of Fayetteville Open Channel. I'm very proud to be associated with FOC. I recently read a very apt description of public access television stations. It goes along the line that public access stations are like a homegrown version of C-SPAN or CNN, the cable news network. And if there's one word that describes Fayetteville Open Channel's programming in the recent past, that word would be immediacy. In addition to providing gavel-to-gavel coverage of local government meetings, FOC has begun broadcasting a variety of live call-in programs. Though each program has its own group of fans, they all have one thing in common. They give the citizens of the community a chance to speak out on a variety of subjects. This is of far more importance than you might suspect. For example, I am presenting at the University of Arkansas Library special collections with certain programs in my Monday night program on the air because they deal with certain political, social events in Fayetteville. All modesty aside, I believe they complement newspaper accounts and news broadcasts simply because on a call-in program, the podium, such as it is shared with the community. We're all aware that Access for Fayetteville claims to be ready to begin cablecasting on April 1st. If you're unaware of television terms, that sounds very impressive. It merely means they will be able to broadcast taped material over the air. All the equipment they need would fit on a large bookcase. Since at last report they don't seem to know where their studio is, then live programs, the call-in forums in which local citizens are able to call up and give their views, they'll be out of the question. A public access provider which is either unable or unwilling to provide live programming does not appear to me to fit the description of a public access provider. I hope that you'll consider this point when making your decision.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm Elena Hinderer, and I want to represent one group that has not been represented either at the hearings about this or really should have been consulted all along and never was, and that's the producers themselves. I'm one of the producers at Fayetteville Open Channel. By the way, I have friends on this side. I've got friends on this side. Schaefer Crane is my friend. I consider her my friend from music festival days. I play in the symphony. I am heartbroken that people cannot get along any better than this over this issue. I do feel to a certain extent that Access 4 people were not getting their way, so they snuck out of the back door of Open Channel and formed their own group to jerk the rug out from under our feet. But that's my personal opinion, and that's how it's affected me. My hands are shaking because this upsets me. I don't like my friends fighting with my friends.
I'm just a guy who likes to produce videos, and I didn't know much about it. I came in last year, and the reason I'm here tonight is just because the way the people of Fayetteville Open Channel came in and helped me, and they didn't have to agree with everything I said. They didn't care. I don't know the details of this study you had, and not to say anything bad about it. It's just that I wonder if this study can measure dedication. I'm telling y'all, the people at Fayetteville Open Channel are dedicated. I mean, they're stringing things together, and I'll give you an example. I'm a Naval Reserve officer, and Renee Tillery worked up a deal where some of the technicians, the Naval Reserve officer, come and repaired equipment for Fayetteville Open Channel. I mean, she's always looking for ways to make it better, and ways that don't always boil down to dollars and cents. And I guess I'm here tonight, like I said, not to take sides, not to say anything ugly about anyone, but just to say that Fayetteville Open Channel and the staff there, in my mind, I've been looking at it from a worm's eye view. They've done about as good a job, given the resources they have, as could possibly be expected. I mean, I've just been watching this, and I wonder why they're being fired, basically. And I guess instead of, I mean, when someone's doing a good job and someone's doing the best job that can possibly be done with the equipment they have, and yet they're relieved of their duties. And I just really, instead of talking, I'd just like to ask the question. I don't know the intricacies of the board study or the group study. Why is Fayetteville Open Channel being fired?
Now, Mr. Drake,
Yes, sir. Can I just say one thing?
Go ahead, but you had your time.
It really doesn't matter at this point who gets the contract. The only thing worth saving is public access TV. The people at Open Channel, if Access 4 gets the contract, the people at Open Channel will work with them. We're anxious to work with whoever gets the contract. We just don't want to see public access TV cut down to several hours a day. That's all we're asking for, you know? We're not enemies, and if Access 4 gets the contract, we're more than willing to work with them. That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
But at any rate, it's not going to help us any. Let's face it, these people are highly polarized. One of the main reasons why there was a split in that board before is because there was no compromise. I don't think we can expect these two groups to get back together and compromise now. So 90 days, 90 years, I don't think it's going to make any difference. So as far as I'm concerned, postponing it is going to put the process back to the beginning, and it's just going to delay matters further and keep things stirred up and confused.
We have an opportunity to transcend the politics of personality and to make a watershed decision here to consciously, with extreme effort, work together to bury the hatchet in a lot of these issues, come back together and work not as two different camps, but as one camp. Take the advantages of the best of both worlds. I believe that everyone in this room is mature enough to be able to back off from the personality problems and to be able to work together to solve the problems that we're facing tonight. I don't like the idea of awarding a contract tonight because I think it's premature, just like your letter says. There is no giant rush. There's no big deadline for us to meet. I don't see why we couldn't extend the contract long enough for, not just for Access 4 to get up to running, but to have both people come back together in one organization, and in this way, where we can be solving Open Channel and Access 4's dilemma, we could be setting a new precedent for all of the divisive problems we have in Fayetteville, which we could all solve if we would work together.
Yes, sir.
The city board must choose to enable one or the other, which boils down to whether they wish to entrust freedom of speech, which is what public access television is all about, to a democratic corporation or to an autocratic one. I know that you do not need me to define your duties as public servants, but I'd like to remind you that if you are to fulfill your obligations to the public, you must always vote for what you know to be right and just, whether you or your immediate constituents or your friends or your vested interests happen to like or not to like the persons upholding the right and just.
Outside of the last few months, I've never heard, except for maybe one person, and that's, again, is only recently, that the city's trying to control the open channel. It's just not true. There is no factual basis. Now, I want to tell you something that happened here several months ago. We had a volunteer for Open Channel make some accusations. We saw some and I don't know what you call overlays of text, and Mary Norton was speaking in the background. I thought that was the first detection I had there was any kind of problem at Open Channel at all, where supposedly this is what Marion Orton was saying. And to me, I felt at the time, what's going on here? This is terribly deceitful to do that to somebody. You know, I'd rather hear what they're saying and not some superimposed text. Then I hear about, and I'm not sure about all the time frame, that a justice of the peace here in Fayetteville, and here again, I hate to attack the messenger rather than the message, but I want this to be known, was basically a recruiting membership drive to go in and stack a meeting of the Open Channel membership. Okay, let me tell you, let me finish this. And I said, no, I really can't believe that. I really can't believe that. And sure enough, you know, that's basically, in my opinion, is what happened here. And the controversy that took place is basically, it would be just like me to try to go in there and stack a meeting of the Open Channel membership. At me, and I guess I'm considered a politician, but wait just a second, I've got the floor. For me to go in and do that, I tell you, people would be screaming bloody murder. What it set up was controversy, guaranteed controversy. And I guarantee another thing, and what I see more and more, wherever Joe is, there's always controversy. And basically, there are great people on this side of the room, there are great people on this side of the room, committed volunteers, and we've got this thing split wide open, and to my estimation, it's because of one individual that started this, and trying to take it and turn it into a political forum. And that's not what Open Channel is. That's not what Open Channel is. Let's don't dismantle this thing. I hope that we can come together. And the volunteers here, obviously there's some love still left on both sides, some admiration of volunteers on both sides. But I tell you, this, I'm not saying that you can't open FOC or access one to all points of view, but when it even has the appearance that one person is a driving force in it, you're going to have disruption and you're going to have chaos. And that's what's happened here, and I think the public needs to know it.
Okay. Now, Joe, you've had your time.
You know, Director Spivey, you accuse people of all kinds of...
Go ahead, Joe.
You make all kinds of accusations about the innuendo and the things that you attack the grapevine at length, you know, about how they can't support factually what they're saying. You know, you just did the same thing here. I said earlier, I didn't get involved in Fayetteville Open Channel until I'd seen that document and watched the video where Marion Norton claimed, basically stated to the employees that the new cable administrator who works directly for Scott Linebaugh would have hiring and firing powers over them. Okay? Now, it is my prerogative to make the sacrifice to get involved in things that I see that are wrong, Director Spivey. I don't create the situations. I may end up there to address it. That's my prerogative as a citizen in the United States of America, where I have 2 honorable discharges defending the Constitution of this country. Thank you, sir.
Okay, now we've had, I think, a pretty good 2 hours of discussion. Shall the, well, let me say that I hope that after this is over, regardless of who wins or loses, that the sides will get together. I hate to say what I'm about to say, and that is I do agree with Richard Drake that it's it's public access that we're concerned about, and I think we're all concerned about that. We want the best public access that we can get, and I want to say that starting in January, we were fortunate that we have PEG station. And that's P for public access, and I'm sure you will. Shall the resolution pass?
Henry?
Yes.
Cootie?
No.
Nash?
No.
Spivey?
Yes.
Forsinger?
Yes.
Green?
Yes.
The resolution passes 4-2. Thank you very much for all your... Pardon?
I really strongly believe that your decision to solidify a division in this room right here has done Fayetteville a disservice to you damning public access television.
Fayetteville Open Channel didn't even have the dignity to go out with a whimper. It just settled into a form of irrelevancy. The presidency of Fayetteville Open Channel was passed from hand to hand like an old rug nobody wanted anymore until the board was reduced to one man who was never even elected to the position of president. He went around just asking anybody if they would become president. And finally, at a coffee shop in Fayetteville one night, he met someone who was willing to do so. The man took on the mantle of presidency of Fayetteville Open Channel, which at this point was reduced to one storage unit full of some tripods, a few cameras, and boxes of hundreds of videotapes, which documented the history of Fayetteville and the history of Fayetteville Open Channel. Several years after that, due to non-payment of the storage fees, everything in the Fayetteville Open Channel storage locker was sold at auction. Gone was the equipment, and gone were hundreds of hours of Fayetteville history. As we sit here tonight, public access in Fayetteville is alive and well. Never thriving financially, still it is supported by thousands of men and women as it has been over decades. In April of 2000, public access celebrated its 20th anniversary in Fayetteville. Several hundred people came out to honor the men and women who had made productions for public access through 2 decades. Public access will probably never be respected by city government. Certainly the wrong sort of people always find their way to the station to use it. Dangerous radicals, avant-garde men and women, people who push the envelope in ways that more comfortable people wish they could not. But Fayetteville Open Channel, Access for Fayetteville, and now Community Access Television have changed life in Fayetteville immeasurably. We've seen the system of government change. We've seen incinerators fought down. We've seen new direction take place in City Hall. A lot of it is due to the freedom allowed here at the station, where people would come down and say their piece in front of you, the audience. Without public access, Fayetteville will be a far different place. Ironically enough, the battles that public access has gone through in the last 20 years have made the station stronger and have cemented the loyalty of thousands of people. Every time the city is threatened by budget cuts, men and women pour down to City Hall. They phone, they send letters, they demonstrate on behalf of public access because people in this community admire it, respect it, and know what it has done for them. So public access is probably in no great danger as long as those running it remember it's for the people. So in a lot of ways we like to laugh and call it People's Revolutionary Television, which is just what it is. So we hope you enjoyed this look at the past tonight and hope you continue to support public access.
Yes, we still have people on the phones. 521.
Come on in. Come on in.
John
Come on
Adams,
in.
sit down.
Come on. These are some of the hardworking, fine members of your community who put public access on for you. There's no way you can say this is any kind of a group. I mean, this is about as diverse as you can get. But we only have one thing in common, and that's a love of television, a love of public access television. We love Open Channel. What?
Said you even have Republicans.
We even have Republicans here, so we're the most broad-minded group you can have. You know?
Let's give our audience a hand.
All right. Thank you. Fran Alexander, Leon Archer.
Well, you know, the last one out always turns off the lights. This is the last production at Fayetteville Open Channel. You know, I really love this place, and I will miss it. Good night.
Oh, hey, how you doing? Yeah, I'm CF Roberts, the most dangerous man in Fayetteville. I'm public access, and so are you. Get out of here, I'm working.
Makes me treat you the way that I do. Gee, baby, ain't I good to you? There's nothing too good for a girl that's so true. Gee, baby, ain't I good to you? Bought you a burger for Christmas, diamond ring, a big Cadillac car, and everything. Love makes me treat you the way that I do. Gee, baby, ain't I good to you? Bought you a burger for Christmas, a diamond ring, a big Cadillac car, and everything. Love makes me treat you the way that I do. Gee, baby, ain't I good? Ain't I good? Ain't I good? Ain't I good to you? To you.
Politics in general and jobs that don't pay enough, 40-hour work weeks, books full of boring stuff, schools that should teach but kids don't learn a thing. These are a few of my least favorite things. Healthcare that won't heal and how people treat the earth, paying tolls and taxes, disbelief in self-worth, bitter cold winters that cut into spring. These are a few of my least favorite things. Religions that claim they're true, don't get me started. Standards that double and people cold-hearted. Judgment and bias when freedom don't ring. These are a few of my least favorite things. All the lying, all the killing, when I'm depressed and sad, I add that to all of my least favorite things, and then I feel really bad. Feel like Julie Andrews or something.